بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه ما بعد. جماعة المسلمين, respected viewers, السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. أهلا وسهلا ومرحبا بكم جميعا أينما كنتم. Welcome to each and every single one of you, wherever you might be. This is our program, Palestine, the Holy Land. And today, inshallah ta'ala, we are going to continue with our update of current events before we, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, by Allah's grace and His mercy, go back into the history and the context that has created the conditions on the ground in Gaza and in the West Bank and in Palestine as a whole, that the Palestinians have been suffering from for the last more than 100 years. But right now, we shall go back to our update of current events. Yesterday, we dealt with the article by Ahmed Najjar, a Palestinian political analyst and playwright, speaking about the dangers of dehumanization. And I added to that dehumanization has always been a part of the Zionist project, whether it's been from the viewpoint of the Christian Zionists or the subsequent so-called Jewish Zionists. Dehumanization has been the engine that has been driving this settler colonial Zionist project in Palestine. And in actual fact, it's intensified. It has accelerated, especially since the 7th of October. And we saw that with the words of Yoav Gallant saying we are dealing with human animals. No fuel, no food, no water, no electricity. And that has been the attitude, and it has been the premise on which this genocide and the ethnic cleansing that is taking place, even in the West Bank. It is this premise, it is this driving force, it is this foundational principle of Zionism, the dehumanization of the Palestinian people, of the indigenous people of the land. In 1917, it was still very subtle. The Balfour Declaration, they were referred to as non-Jewish communities. Non-Jewish community. At least with a recognition in words of the so-called civil rights and religious rights, but no political rights. No political rights. And that has been something that, even with regards to the absence of political rights in the Balfour Declaration, that even the civil and religious rights have been eroded away, where one can almost say that they hardly have any sort of rights, not even human rights, remain for the Palestinians in the land of their ancestors, the land that they've inhabited for hundreds, if not thousands of years. So let us continue, and I think it is important for us to look at some of the live updates as they are coming in. The latest one is by Uruba Jamal, 15th of April 2025. Israel kills 17 people in Gaza. Hamas, the resistance, reviews new ceasefire proposal. Hamas is reviewing a new ceasefire proposal from Israel and will respond as soon as possible, as the movement spokesperson Sami Abu Zuhri tells Al Jazeera that the request to disarm Hamas is not acceptable even to hear. We spoke about this the other day. In order to get a better understanding, again, we have to stop, when we're speaking English, we have to stop using this word Hamas and we have to translate it into what it is. Because Hamas on its own means nothing in English. It's an Arabic acronym. And when we spell it out, Al-Harakat al-Muqawamat al-Islamiyya, Islamic resistance movement, it is exactly that. It is a resistance movement. It is resisting oppression. It is resisting occupation. It's resisting ethnic cleansing. It's resisting genocide. And that cannot be done. It's not possible for them to resist the fourth strongest army, as they boast, the Zionist entity, the fourth strongest army in the world, being armed to the teeth by the United States of America and other Western allies. It's not possible to resist such an occupation. It's not possible to resist such a brutal and savage and violent aggression against you and your people, speaking to the Palestinians now, without armed resistance. Ask any liberation movement, or ask any people that were involved in any form of liberation struggle, freedom struggle. Ask the Irish, ask the South Africans. There are many examples, not just contemporary, but also in history, that in order to end occupation, in order to end violent aggression, the indigenous people, the natives, whatever you want to call them, people who are native to the land, people who were there before the invader, before the settler colonialists came, an armed struggle was the only way in which they could either eject the occupation from their land, or in many cases, or at least sue for some form of peace or peaceful settlement. So it shouldn't be alarming, it shouldn't be a shock to anybody that the request to disarm, in fact, I read in one report, is crossing 1 million red lines. You cannot ask a resistance group to disarm, because then they cease to be a resistance group, because how else are they going to resist? Peace talks have never worked. Protesting has never worked. Nowadays, people are locked up in Palestine just for tweeting. So ultimately, what the Zionist entity wants is total subjugation. They want to end. They want the resistance to cease in existence. They want the resistance to have no existence. And that is the reason why the Islamic resistance movement refuses to disarm. The second live update is that at least 17 Palestinians have been killed and 69 wounded in Israeli attacks across Gaza in the past 24 hours. This is happening every day, according to the Enclave's health ministry. If this was a Western media platform, they would have said, according to the Enclave's Hamas-run health ministry. And we spoke about what Ahmed Najjar said, that they even have to prove that their medics are medics, and their doctors are doctors, and their humanitarian aid workers are humanitarian aid workers. They have to prove. The ministry says that at least 51,000 Palestinians are confirmed dead, which is a word that we will not use as Muslims. We will say slain or killed or martyred. We cannot say that they are dead. Why? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala prohibits it in the Holy Quran. وَلَا تَقُولُوا لِمَنْ يُقْتَلُ فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ أَمْوَاتًا أو أموات بل أحياء ولكن لا تشعرون. Do not say of those who have been slain in Allah's path that they are dead, nay, they are alive, but you perceive it not. And 116,343 wounded in Israel's war on Gaza. Again, I'm just reading from the Al Jazeera website. Again, we take exception to this language. So number one, confirmed dead doesn't give you a realistic picture. They have been slain, they have been killed, they've been murdered, they've been massacred, they've been genocided. Because the goal is to destroy a people. And that is the definition of genocide, either in whole or in part. The destruction of a people, in whole or in part, that is the definition of genocide. And in as far as it being a war, well, we've debunked that. It's not a war. It's not even a conflict. This is a liberation struggle where people are fighting for survival, they are fighting for freedom, they are fighting for justice, they are fighting for dignity, they are fighting for their human rights. They are fighting to break the yoke of occupation that has been around their necks for more than 100 years. The government media office updated its death toll to more than 61,700, saying that thousands of people missing under the rubble are presumed dead. At least 1,159 people were killed in Israel on the 7th of October. Again, people must go and do their research. People must go and see how many of those that were killed on the 7th of October were actually killed by the resistance, and how many were killed in the Hannibal Directive that was given by the Zionist occupation forces, that when hostages were being taken, that in order to kill what they perceived or what they view as terrorists, and what the resistance fighters were engaging in, that when the Israeli occupation forces fired on the resistance fighters, they killed many of their own people. And that is by testimony of people within the Israeli occupation forces. Then we have a few updates with regards to what has happened today. We have 57 minutes ago, at least one person killed in an Israeli air attack on a car in Lebanon. We reported earlier that Israel hit a car in the Lebanese town of Aytarun. The Lebanese Ministry of Health reported that one person was killed and 3 others were injured, including a child, in that attack. So even in the north, even in Lebanon, Israel is still committing airstrikes. Then we have women and girls suffer triply in Gaza. This is from the United Nations. Women and girls suffer triply, says United Nations Population Fund Regional Director for Arab States, says Layla Baker, or represented by Layla Baker. They suffer with their own health, with many of the health facilities and the infrastructure almost completely brought to a halt, with medication and supplies being denied. Their malnutrition is also at risk, and they are also the caretakers for their families. So they put their own health and well-being aside, Baker told Al Jazeera from Cairo, Egypt. She said pregnant women are finding it difficult to find a medical facility as well as safe access to it due to the Israeli attacks. Even if they could get there, would there be a professional? Will there be aid? Will there be medication? Can they get back to their place, a tent, a displacement center, safely? Will that newborn actually survive the conditions in Gaza with food, water, shelter, being in such limited supplies? Still, the women and girls she has spoken to in the besieged enclave have tenacity and commitment, Baker said. What I got from those women was that they were proud to be Palestinian women, and to live in their country and to remain. To be able to be steadfast and remain on the Palestinian land. Another update, this is the most recent one, that a field hospital attack shows Israel's deliberate intent to destroy healthcare in Gaza. Well, what we know for sure is, and this has been openly stated by members of the Knesset, that they want to force the Palestinians out of Gaza. How are they doing that? Well, number one, they have destroyed Gaza. Infrastructurally, Gaza has been totally annihilated. It has been destroyed. I'm speaking about the infrastructure itself. The spirit of the people, their resilience, their iman, that is Allahu Akbar. That is indestructible bi'idhnillah, by God's grace. But in as far as the buildings are concerned, in as far as the homes are concerned, the schools are concerned, the universities are concerned, even the zoo and the graveyards are concerned, they have been pulverized. They have been destroyed. They have been, the hospitals, is there even a fully functioning hospital left? I believe Al-Ahli Hospital was the last fully functioning hospital. That was also struck yesterday morning. And so infrastructurally, and with regards to clean water, with regards to food, 2.3 million Palestinians are reliant on food aid, and hardly any food aid is getting in. So what does that mean? Destroying the infrastructure, no water, no clean water, no electricity, well, I mean, very scarce, hardly any food aid getting in. What are they trying to do? They are trying to make the strip uninhabitable. And they believe that, just like Ben Gurion said in 48, that the Palestinians will have no other choice but to flee. Because of the conditions that the Zionists created on the ground in the Nakba, in the catastrophe of 48. They will have no other choice but to flee. And in 48, flee they did. Some of them because of massacres that were taking place in Tantura and Dir Yassin and Sa'sa and Shusha and many other places. Some of them were literally put onto trucks and dumped, literally dumped, over the border in the West Bank. We're talking about after the Nakba, or during the Nakba, because Jordan had made a secret deal with the Zionists that they will not fight them as long as they give them the West Bank. And others were taken and dumped in the Gaza Strip, in those eight refugee camps. Those 8 refugee camps that are there, Shati and Dir Balah and Burayj and Nusayrat and Maghazi and Jabalia and Khan Yunis and yeah, I think that those are the 8. Those are the 8. Those are the 8. That these 8 refugee camps, and they're still referred to as refugee camps, even when there were buildings there, even when there were blocks of flats. They called them refugee camps because they started out as camps. They were living in tents. They were living in tents in the West Bank. They were living in tents in Gaza in 1948. They were driven off their land. They were driven out of their villages. The villages were subsequently destroyed. According to Abu Sitta, 531 villages. And they became refugees, 750,000 of them, plus minus. And it was under these conditions that, because they were given strict instructions, the Haganah, which became then the Israeli Defense Force, or as we like to call them, the Israeli Occupation Force, they were given strict instructions that any Arab, meaning a Palestinian, that wants to return to their village after they have been displaced and ethnically cleansed from that village, they must be shot. There were clear instructions. Nobody should be allowed back. No one. And so the Zionists created the conditions on the ground that would automatically, by default, ensure the ethnic cleansing of the land. And that's what they're trying to create now in Gaza. And in a far more, it was savage what they did in 48. But we can hardly even compare the savagery of then to the savagery of now. Cannot compare. Such a short space of time, how many Palestinians have been murdered, have been injured, have been maimed? How many children have lost limbs? And now, with almost 120,000 injured, if there are no hospitals, where are they to go to get help, to get treatment? So the Zionists believe that by destroying the infrastructure, the homes, the schools, the universities, the hospitals, that, like Ben Gurion said in 48, because they are still on the same methodology. Now there might be, I think, where the biggest change, in my humble opinion, is that it seems like the Zionists don't really care anymore what the outside world thinks. And just read some of the statements of Rabbi Meir Kahane. He couldn't give two hoots what the world thought. The whole world was against the Zionist project. He wrote in 1981, they must go. Meaning the Palestinians, they must go. Ben Gurion tried to hide, tried to cover up what he did, what he and the Jewish militias, what they did in 48, tried to cover it up, tried to create a false narrative. But that has now all been exposed. And the myth of the Arabs leaving of their own accord, that has been totally debunked. Let's go for a short break. We'll be back thereafter bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillah walhamdulillah wa salatu wassalamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala ma ba'd. Once again, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to our program Palestine, the Holy Land. And we're just going through some live updates with what is happening on the ground. And just before the break, we were dealing with an article, again from Al Jazeera, whereby they are showing us in this article that an attack on a field hospital, and that's besides the attack on Al Ahli Hospital, which took place, not yesterday, on Sunday morning, that this shows Israel's deliberate intent to destroy healthcare in Gaza. But it's part of a bigger picture, as I mentioned now before the break. That it's part of the bigger picture of making life impossible, making the Gaza Strip uninhabitable, making, as Ben Gurion said in 48, making it so that the Palestinians will have no other choice but to flee, to run away. This is the bigger picture. Homes are destroyed, schools are destroyed, universities are destroyed, even tent encampments, places where people are living in tents seeking refuge, are being blown up, are being attacked. Nowhere in Gaza is safe. Hospitals are being destroyed, even field hospitals. And this is where the Gaza Health Ministry has condemned the Israeli attack on the Kuwaiti field hospital in Al-Mawasi area of southern Gaza's Khan Yunis Governorate, which killed at least one medic and injured 9 people. So they're even attacking field hospitals, makeshift hospitals. The targeting confirms the occupation's deliberate intent to inflict greater damage to the healthcare system and threaten the treatment of the wounded and sick even in hospital beds, the ministry said in a statement published on Telegram. The occupation's crimes against medical facilities will not cease as long as there is no firm stance from international and humanitarian institutions. The Ministry of Health reiterates its appeal to all international concerned parties to provide protection for hospitals and medical personnel. But you see, the Zionist entity is doing it with absolute impunity. They are not being stopped. In fact, the world cannot stop them as long as America and its Western allies allow them. Basically, with the Trump administration, as testified, as borne witness to by the war criminal Netanyahu, said we've never had this kind of support from Washington as we have now in the Trump administration. A green light. That's what they've been given. They've been given a green light. And especially in light of Trump's real estate plans, Donald Trump's real estate plans for the Gaza Strip, to turn it into the Riviera of the Middle East. La hawla wa la quwwata. On the bones of the martyred. How more sick can you get? In fact, in his latest meeting, Donald Trump with the war criminal Netanyahu, in his latest meeting, he said he doesn't know how Israel could have given it up in the first place. Such a valuable piece of real estate. He's speaking about 2005, when the Israeli occupation forces exited or pulled back, retreated from the Gaza Strip. But only then to place around it a choking siege after the resistance. Remember, the PLO had, with Oslo, basically capitulated. They had raised the white flag. They had sold the Palestinian issue. In reality, they had sold it down the river. And so Israel does not see any other relationship with the Palestinians except in the form of subjugation. If they are to remain, because ethnic cleansing is an ongoing process, so if there are to remain any Palestinians in the land of Palestine after the main ethnic cleansing phase is complete, then they have to live in total subjugation and in total obedience to the Zionist state. And that is why, as we mentioned earlier, in the latest negotiations, they are demanding that the resistance must disarm, because they don't want any resistance. They want the resistance to go out of existence. They want the resistance to go out of existence. Because when Oslo happened, which basically ended the armed struggle of the Palestinian Liberation Organization, they were a liberation organization, and they engaged in an armed struggle. And with Oslo, Hamas was, of course, formed before Oslo. Oslo was 93. Hamas was formed in 87. So it was basically a capitulation in the eyes of the majority, overwhelming majority of Palestinians, with Area A, B, and C that was designated in the West Bank. Area A was basically the only area where the Palestinians had full control. Area B, shared control. And Area C, Zionist control. They went from being a liberation organization, a liberation movement, the Palestinian Liberation Organization. They went from being a liberation movement to being a Zionist administrator. Literally working for the Zionist regime. There's no other way to put it. And the Zionists saw this as a clear victory. Why? Because they had brought down a liberation organization. They had basically extracted the teeth of the lion, a toothless lion. And so now they want to do the same and they've been trying to do the same with the Islamic resistance movement, with so-called Hamas. But the resistance movement are refusing point blank. What did the representative say? He said that will be crossing a million line. Because you de-arm a resistance movement, there's no more resistance. And so the writing is on the wall. What the Zionists want is what is called voluntary immigration. Voluntary immigration. Now, this is just a term that doesn't have really any meaning. Just want to bring it up in front of me here. In fact, they're building an agency. This is from the 24th of March, 2025. Israel building agency to steer Palestinian voluntary departure from Gaza. Under the proposal, the displacement of Palestinians from Gaza will be under the control of the Defense Ministry. Israel is set to establish a government agency that would oversee, in inverted commas, the voluntary departure of Palestinians from the Gaza Strip. So destroy the infrastructure, destroy the hospitals, even the field hospitals, the makeshift hospitals, rendering it impossible to administer any sort of care or treatment, medical care or medical treatment to the population in Gaza. Cut off electricity, cut off water, cut off humanitarian aid. Those three, whether they exist or not, are existing in a trickle form, which is certainly, words don't even describe how insufficient it is for the 2.3 million inhabitants of the Gaza Strip. So make life impossible. Make the Gaza Strip uninhabitable, so that they will have no other choice, like Ben Gurion said in 48, but to flee. And this is not in any way to criticize the resolve or the resilience or the strength of faith of the Palestinians in 48. But certainly we are dealing with a different generation of Palestinians. And they have learnt the mistakes of their forefathers. And as we've heard them say time and time again, over and over again, that we will rather die here, but we are not going to leave. We saw what happened to our grandparents, or our great-grandparents, in 1940. We saw what happened to them. In many cases, parents. And some of them are still alive. They were children in 1948. They're still alive. Never again are they going to be driven from their land, because they know what it means. When you leave, you can never come back. We dealt with the whole idea of transfer, the polite word for ethnic cleansing, in the statements of the early Zionist leaders. And we know this was their goal all along. Whether it was Theodore Herzl in his diary in 1895, we shall spirit the penniless poor across the border. Whether it was Israel Zangul, the Palestinians will have to trek. Whether it was Rabbi Meir Kahane, they will have to go. Whether it was David Ben Gurion, that the Palestinians will have no other choice but to flee. Whether it was Ze'ev Jabotinsky, we must get the American Jews to pay $500 million. And then we can transfer the Palestinians to Iraq and to Saudi Arabia. This has always been their goal. And now they see this is the opportunity. Menachem Begin in 67 after the 6-Day War, what did he want to do? I know I've repeated this many times. I repeat it to you again so that you can keep it here. What did Menachem Begin do in 67? He said, let's go into Gaza, destroy the 8 refugee camps from 48 and drive the Palestinians into the Sinai Desert. They're in a hurry. They are hasty. They want to get it done now. They want to finish the project. They want to clean the land. And this is why they are doing what they are doing. Destroying all the infrastructure, destroying the homes, destroying the schools, destroying the university, destroying even the graveyards, destroying the zoo, destroying the masajid. I think about 1,000, I stand to be corrected, 1,000 masjids, either partially or fully destroyed. Imagine that. But alhamdulillah, the people of Gaza are still standing up for Fajr and making salah wherever, on the rubble. On the rubble. In broken, in partially destroyed masajid, they are still praying, reciting Quran, remembering Allah. But this is exactly what's happening now. And it's happening every day. 100 killed here, 60 killed there, 39 killed here, 15 killed there, hospital bombed, field hospital destroyed, more homes demolished, more schools, UN schools, UNRWA schools in which people are taking refuge, in which refugees are taking refuge, are still being attacked. All in the hope, the Zionists hope, that the Palestinians will eventually just give up and run away. So they have now, according to this article dated the 24th of March 2025, they have set up a government agency in order to oversee the voluntary departure of Palestinians from the Gaza Strip. A spokeswoman for Prime Minister war criminal Benjamin Netanyahu confirmed on Monday that the agency is being built following the Israeli Security Cabinet's approval of Defense Minister Israel Katz's plan over the weekend. Saudi Arabia has condemned Israel's announcement of an agency aimed at displacing Palestine. My words to Saudi Arabia would be, then do something about it. Like Malik Faisal did something about it. King Faisal, rahimahullah ta'ala. Rahimahullah ta'ala. May Allah shower His mercy upon King Faisal. Saudi Arabia just whether it's Saudi Arabia, whether it's Jordan, stop talking, do something about it. Do something about it. Tear up your peace treaties, throw it in the bin. Saudi Arabia, cut off the oil. 1973, Malik Faisal turned off the taps. He said to Kissinger, he said to Henry Kissinger, he said, we come from the desert. We used to live in tents and eat dates and drink water. I think he had little mini on the table. He had little mini oil rigs. Well, not oil rigs, yes, oil rig. But the one comes on the land, that little, looks like a metal teepee. He had these little mini oil wells on the table. And he said, you see these oil wells? And on the table he had dates and water. He said, come and you want to blow up our oil wells? Come and blow them up. We can go back to eating dates and drinking water. And he turned off the taps. That was in 73. And I think even less than a year later they killed him. Under very mysterious circumstances. His nephew came back from America and shot him. Murdered him in cold blood. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant him a high place. And that's what he had asked for. After the burning of Masjid al-Aqsa in 69, he said, what are we afraid of? He was literally saying to the Ummah that we need a united global Islamic revolution. This is what King Faisal said. Not a nationalist revival. Nahda, he said, Nahda, revival. And Nahda Islamiyya, La Qawmiyya, La Unsuriyya. Not nationalist, not tribalist, not racist. We need a revival, he said. And at the end of his speech, he said, if Allah is not going to write for me to literally liberate Palestine and free the Palestinians from the yoke of occupation, then he mustn't allow me to remain one moment longer on this earth. And Allah answered his dua. He asked for shahada, he asked for martyrdom, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala granted him that martyrdom. But today, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Egypt, just talking, talk shop. We want more than just empty words. We want more than just condemnations. Saudi Arabia has condemned Israel's announcement of an agency aimed at displacing Palestine, because that's exactly what it is. An agency aimed at displacing Palestinian people. You see, before they did it subtly. Now they're doing it in open. Egypt and other Arab countries have not yet reached or reacted to the announcement, but have repeatedly insisted on a two-state solution. It's just talk shop. Talk. That's why there's never really been peace talks, P-A-E-C-E. But there has been peace talks, P-I-E-C-E. Every time they talk, they take another piece. Talk, another piece. Talk, another piece. But no P-E-A-C-E, no salam. No salam, no shalom. Egypt and other Arab countries have not yet reacted to the announcement, but have repeatedly insisted on a two-state solution to the conflict and the necessity of establishing an independent Palestinian state, as well as rebuilding Gaza with Palestinians remaining in the coastal territory. The Israeli move follows suggestions from United States President Donald Trump that residents of Gaza should be moved to other countries, which rights groups and critics worldwide have said is ethnic cleansing, the forced removal of a population from its home. They're even dangling a carrot in front of Somaliland, saying, listen, we will recognize Somaliland, that's the old British protectorate, we'll recognize you, but then you must receive the Palestinians into Somalia. I lived in Somaliland, in Hargeisa. I don't know if the suggestion came from the Somaliland government. If it did, it's an absolute betrayal of the Palestinian people. An absolute betrayal. Just like it was a betrayal for Morocco to want to normalize with the Zionist state, for America to acknowledge their right over Western Sahara. And I mean, I'm not even getting into that debate. That's a historical debate with regards to Western Sahara being part of Morocco, not being part of Morocco. But for them to want to normalize relations with the Zionist state, while the Zionists have been doing what they've been doing since day one to the Palestinian people, is a total betrayal. As a Muslim country, is a total betrayal of their brothers and sisters in Islam. Sudan was also coerced into some sort of normalization. And look what they got afterwards. They got civil war. They got civil war. It is the biggest humanitarian crisis in the world today in Sudan. Millions of people on the brink of starvation. So, the spokeswoman confirmed that an authority are tasked with preparing voluntary departure of residents of the Gaza Strip to third countries in a safe and controlled manner was being established. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. I just want to complete this statement with regards to Donald Trump. The Israeli move follows suggestions from United States President Donald Trump that residents of Gaza should be moved to other countries, which rights groups and critics worldwide have said is ethnic cleansing, the forced removal of a population from its home. So, whether it's Somaliland, whether it's Sudan, whether it's Egypt, whether it's Jordan, whether it's Saudi Arabia, whether it is Morocco, these countries should have absolutely nothing to do, and they should outrightly reject any of these kind of proposals. This will see the administration of immigration, they're calling it, placed under the control of the Defense Ministry, she said. People willing to leave the sealed of Gaza Strip should be allowed to do so in compliance with Israeli and international law? Hang on. International law? Netanyahu's spokeswoman said that people willing to leave the sealed of Gaza Strip should be allowed to do so in compliance with Israeli and international law and in line with US President Donald Trump's vision. But they can't live in the Gaza Strip under international law. Every international law has been broken regarding the treatment, regarding the bombardment, regarding the ethnic cleansing, regarding the genocide of the people who want to live in the Gaza Strip. But no, they can be ethnically cleansed according to international law. Ethnic cleansing is a crime according to international law, madam. Whatever your name is. Netanyahu's spokeswoman continued. Full stop. That's all we have time for today. I leave you all in the protection of Allah until next time. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.